In the West, primary religious traditions that have been established in the West, whether or not you grew up within that particular tradition or not, there is this sense of being flawed from the start. Somehow, at just the fact that we're humans of the flesh, in the flesh, therefore we are flawed from the get-go. It's a very prevalent feeling, and the sense of, if we're inclined to over the course of a lifetime, our task is then to justify our existence, prove our worth, earn our abiding bliss, earn our ticket to the blissful afterlife. And so there can be this sense of, my job is to fix this, fix what I think is wrong with me, with this organism. And I'm not quite sure how much I have to do, how good I have to get, but there always seems to be more. There always seems to be the sense of not quite good enough, not quite worthy. Maybe not for everyone, but it's a very prevalent feeling in the West of having to earn the right to be here in this life. And even if we're not brought up in a religious household, for example, often for people who work in or with psychologists, there's this sense of having to fix something that is not working. Almost like, investigating to remove the bug from the software. What's not working with this person? We have something that needs to be fixed. In order to be what? In order to be just okay. Just, entitled to live this life without feeling like we're a stranger in a strange land. So there's this sense in the West of having this flawed character, in a sense, that feels like me. And so there's a sense of having to fix me in order to hopefully gain some degree of freedom and equanimity. In the East, particularly in Buddhism or early Zen, there's a quite different fundamental take on our essential beingness, and that is that what we most essentially are is pure being. And yes, there's some conditioning that sort of obscures that fundamental fact. But what is at the heart of things is already pure, already complete, already whole. And so our job is just to clear away some of the debris, some of the misunderstandings that obscure what we most essentially are. So unlike in the West, where we feel like it's our fundamental beingness that needs to be fixed, often in the East, there's this sense of fundamentally everything is fine. And yes, as a human in this lifetime, there's some things to be unlearned in a way, misconceptions that need to be seen, that are obscuring this fundamental fact of this basic purity. Very different feelings, very different approaches. But in a sense, what both are talking about is the conditioning that's happened during this lifetime of this organism. And so we all were conditioned in different ways, of course, different degrees, but all of us were conditioned. And a lot of that conditioning was useful. When we were born, we didn't know how to brush our teeth or walk or drive a car or talk or write our name or anything. And all of that was learned. So it was a way this body was conditioned. And once it's been conditioned, then that becomes a way of responding to the world. In other words, when we first learn to drive, it requires all of our attention to keep all the different things that we have to worry about in mind, and we have to stay focused. But after a while, when the body becomes conditioned to, driving on the correct side of the road and who has right of way and how to turn the steering wheel if we want to stay within our lane, all of that is a form of conditioning. And once we've learned that, it doesn't require mental effort. It requires awareness and the body's conditioning. So it becomes, in some ways, quite automatic in a good way. But the same conditioning, the way it works, when a certain pattern is established, if the pattern is, let's just say, it doesn't serve what we would most like to be, maybe our conditioning makes us, unworthiness is a common one, socially awkward is often common, like I need to justify myself, needing to prove myself, needing to stand out, needing to hide, whatever our conditioning is, it can feel constricting. Like it doesn't really express who we believe that we are in a deeper sense. It doesn't express what we are in a joyful, creative way. And so those kinds of conditioning can feel quite constrictive. The problem is when we, try to go to fix that, then in a sense we divide ourselves in two. There's the conditioned behavior or conditioned thought pattern, and then there's this other voice in our head that says, that's not what I want. It needs to be different. I don't like it. I'll ignore it. I'll try to override it. I'll try to pretend it's not there, whatever our strategy is. But that opposition actually strengthens whatever that conditioning is. Opposition gives energy to that which we are opposed to. We all learned that as teenagers, right? Our parents opposed a certain kind of behavior. That's sort of the direction we went in. Right? The opposition created that energy and strengthened that which they were opposed to. So if we can see the degree to which these body-mind organisms have been conditioned over a lifetime, it can be shocking, right? It can be shocking to the degree and the extent that it affects our behavior, because we hold this idea that, we have a personal will, to be this way or that way. And yes, some of the conditioning feels like it constrains us, but by and large, it feels like we have some dominion over our life. But when we look more closely, it's possible to see the extent of how this conditioning colors everything, how we view ourselves, how we view the other people, how we view the world, how we view existence as a whole. Once that conditioning is in place, we view life through that lens, through that veil. And sure enough, life looks like that. And so the belief reinforces our experience, the experience reinforces our belief, and the conditioning is perpetuated to the point that generally as adults, the kind of conditioning that we're talking about, the dysfunctional conditioning, feels not like it's on the periphery. It just feels more and more like it's hardwired into who I am. It's just what I am. What can I do? I guess I'll just have to live out my years and do the best I can with it. That's the feeling of it. It's become so ingrained, and we believe in its solidity so much. And if that's were the entirety of what we are, this conditioned organism, there'd be no way out. It would be a grim situation, just functioning over and over again in a very predictable, very conditioned, very automatic way, almost mechanistic. And if that were the entirety of it, it would almost be like a cruel joke played on us humans. And so the question may arise, well, if all of this that we can observe is so conditioned, is there anything that's not? Is there anything that's unconditioned? And fortunately, the answer is yes. There's one thing. One thing is good enough. But that one thing changes everything. And that one thing is this innate, mysterious, ever-present awareness of whatever it is that's happening, consciousness, the capacity to notice whatever it is that's happening. And that is unconditioned. It's unconditioned because it's not of the same world of form that everything else is. Everything else has a certain duration, size, shape, color, age, gender, personality. Everything has a certain character in that sense. But this awareness is just aware, and that's its freedom. So it's aware and present when we're acting in accordance with our highest beliefs, and it's also present and aware of when we get hooked and get triggered and act out of our conditioning, react. So it's there for the whole show. But that's also its freedom, because no matter what is happening, it remains free of it. It remains undamaged. It's like if you had a room, let's say a concert hall, quiet, nobody there, empty, spacious. And then let's say you brought in, I don't know, a punk rock band, and they played their hearts out for an hour and filled everything with music and noise and drums and loud. And then they packed up and left. Was the silence harmed? Did what was present and quiet, did it have to leave the room and wait out in the hallway till the band finished playing, and then the band left and then the silence came back into the room? Or was the silence actually present there the whole time? Just that spaciousness that allowed that music to happen. And when it subsided, that same spaciousness was there, not harmed in any way. And it's the same with the awareness that we are. You know, we might go through a very difficult period of our life, traumatic, and yet this awareness remains pure. I'm not saying what we went through was easy. I'm just saying that there is something within all of us already that is beyond harm. The bodies can be harmed. They can be harmed physically, they can be harmed emotionally, they can get sick, they can get hurt. But this awareness is as pure as ever. And so if we can touch into that, recognize that, because it's a matter of recognition rather than becoming worthy of it, right? We don't have to become worthy of what we already are. We miss it because it's right in front of us and we think it's distant. We miss it because we think it's complex, obscure, and it's simple. We miss it because we think we have to become worthy of it, and it has nothing to do with worthiness. We miss it because we think we have to earn it, but the gift has already been given. We miss it because we're looking for it out there, and it's always been right here. We miss it because we think it's some special cosmic experience in the future, of course, when it is the recognition of what's always been present, always now. We miss it because we're fearful of losing control, but life has always been in control. We miss it because we try to figure it out. We think we can do that, but what we are isn't a concept. We're not going to figure it out. We can be it, but we won't ever know it like we know stuff. Like we learn to learn about things. That we will never be able to do. But we can learn to live as that. We can do that.